How can you become more emotionally mature? Perhaps you see yourself as you're too sensitive in relationships, you get upset too easily, possibly you get all worked up, or could be that you shut down and you can't talk anymore and you can't interact in the relationship. And so your goal is to become emotionally mature, but how do you do that? And I gotta say that with the women that I have worked with and talked to, they usually go about it in the wrong way. And it's understandable in the way that they're trying to do this, trying to get their emotions under control. But what ends up happening is their emotions actually become more out of control. They get to the place where they are just angry all the time, or they're even more depressed about how they see that they are, and they feel hopeless to be able to change. Today, I want to help you to be able to understand what it is that really does work in order to become more emotionally mature. I'm going to lay out what it is that doesn't work and why it is that your emotions are out of control, and then what is needed to be able to get them under control so that you can be emotionally mature. If you are new here, I want to welcome you, and be sure to say hello and let me know a little bit about yourself. My name is Tawnya Kordenbrock. I am a licensed professional clinical counselor. I have an online program where I help women be able to rewire their brains to break free from fear, anger, and shame so they can love themselves, feel loved by others, and have a deeper relationship with God. I hope right now that you will go ahead and subscribe so that you can receive more of these teachings. And also, as usual, I do have a free resource that I want to tell you about at the end of this teaching. And in my last teaching, I talked about the 3 signs of emotional maturity. So you might want to check that video out. And those 3 signs are that your emotions don't control you, but also you aren't ignoring your emotions. And the third one is the most important, and that is that you are able to stay present with your emotions, especially in relationships, to be able to walk through the situations, the problems that you are encountering. And so now let's take a look at what it is that women normally try to do in order to get to that place. Well, first of all, when your emotions are bothering you, I mean, they can be uncomfortable, right? If you are feeling fearful or ashamed, you're feeling insecure, you're scared about what's going to happen in the relationship, you're feeling sad or hurt, whatever. These are uncomfortable emotions. And the tendency is to, first of all, might be to totally believe what your emotions are telling you. Your emotions are telling you that this person doesn't like you, they don't care about you, they are rejecting you, and then thoughts come with that there's something wrong with you, or they think there's something wrong with you, and they can't be trusted. People can't be trusted in general. And so you totally believe what your emotions are telling you, and that causes them then to escalate, and you get trapped in that place of escalation. Now, another way that women try to handle their emotions, because those uncomfortable emotions, is to push them down so that then you try to not feel them. And of course, you can use substances to try to do that. You can use food to try to do it, or you can just beat yourself up and condemn yourself for feeling how you're feeling, and telling yourself you shouldn't feel that way, that you're stupid, you're selfish, nobody would care anyway, and what's wrong with you? You're too emotional, you're too whatever kind of term you could come up with that's going to put yourself down, to cause yourself to try to not feel these feelings that you're having, the hurt or the sadness, the loneliness, the fear. But that also does not work, because that does not enable you to get to these, the three goals of not allowing your emotions to control you, because they will continue to come back. And you're not really controlling them by pushing them down. And that has a tendency also to make them stronger. It's where they end up coming back with more force in the future. So ignoring your emotions is also not a sign of emotional maturity. And in order to be able to work through those emotions, to be able to stay present with them, to be able to stay present in a relationship while you're working through your feelings and getting clarity on what's going on within the relationship, that you need to be able to get your emotions down to a level of tolerance. You don't want them being too intense, and nor do you want them being too low where you are not even clear on what it is you are feeling or what it is that's going on inside of you. It's kind of like a boat motor. And you don't want to be in racing speed all the time, and nor do you want to be down in trolling speed to where you're barely getting anywhere. But you want it to be at cruise, in that cruise range where you're going along at a good speed, you're getting somewhere in life where you want to be, yet you're not out of control. Now, of course, emotional triggers are always going to come, that are whenever you perceive that you are being rejected or abandoned, or someone is going to hurt you. Perhaps you perceive that you're going to fail, or you're not being valued. There's some injustice. And that tends to cause your emotions to either skyrocket or to take a dive, right? So that's always going to happen. And part of that is because those needs for safety, for being valued, for being loved, for being accepted and cared for, those are all basic human needs that we all have. There's nothing wrong with that. But what goes on in you that when these get triggered, that you get out of control with your emotions? Why is it that you're not able to work through that, to be able to get to a place that resolves the situation with another person or with an activity, that something you're trying to accomplish? Normally, it is because of significant hurts that you have had in your life, and also because these needs were not met as a child. And because you did not receive those needs of feeling accepted, feeling safe, feeling like you were okay, that you would be cared for, being valued, because those weren't present, you did not learn adequate ways to honor your emotions and to be able to work through them, but instead you developed response patterns on how to cope with those emotions. Those response patterns then involve either becoming hyper in tune with your emotions so that you believe what they are telling you, and then also will cause you to be more aggressive in your relationships. Or you have learned to deal with those emotions by quieting them down, as I talked about earlier, and then turning inward on yourself and becoming depressed and possibly angry at yourself, and even more angry and possibly bitter at others. So instead of totally believing what your emotions tell you or pushing them down so that you don't have to feel them, what you will want to do is reparent yourself to respond differently to emotional upsets. Now, as a child, your emotional needs were ignored and no one had compassion for the way in which you were feeling. And now as an adult woman, you will have to be that person to reparent yourself, to reparent that wounded part of yourself. And that begins with understanding how this developed in you, understanding what was going on in your early years of your life where you did not have safety, or you did not have, and that doesn't only mean physical safety, it also means emotional safety, where you felt like you could be who you were, that you could express your feelings within your family, and that those feelings would be heard and they would be valued, and being able to know that someone would care, that someone would have empathy with you, to be in line with, to understand how it was that you were feeling. So you will have to do that for yourself today, to have some empathy for yourself, some compassion, to have an understanding of, I see how this is developed in you. I see how you were not heard, or how you were so often hurt in your childhood, how you were fearful, or how you weren't free to be able to express yourself. And no wonder today it is that then you fear not being heard, or you fear that others are going to be dangerous, or they're going to be uncaring, or they're going to turn back on you and say that you're being selfish for feeling the way that you're feeling. No wonder you feel that way. No wonder this is a struggle for you. Now, also, besides having compassion for yourself and how that developed within you, you also will need to recognize how you learn to cope and what your particular response pattern is. And I talk about this in plenty of my other videos, so check those out, especially the ones on emotional healing, and then also some of the ones on anxiety and depression. So you want to understand what your particular response pattern is, and then begin making some changes to that. And we work on this extensively in my online Mastering Emotions program, if you are interested in that and would like to join me in it. I hope you'll check it out. But for now, be aware of how it is that when you are upset, like what emotions tend to trigger you, what thoughts come along with those emotions, and then what do they cause you to do behaviorally? And also, what does it cause to happen within your body where you feel those emotions? What happens with your breathing? What happens with your posture? All of that is part of your response pattern. And as you become aware of that, especially as you become aware of it in the moment of when you're feeling upset, then you will be able to bring the intensity of those emotions down to a level of tolerability where you can, or to bring them up to a level of tolerability to where you can work through them, to be able to interact with others and to be able to problem solve and to get situations figured out, to where you can also get your emotional needs met. And it won't just be about everyone else and what they want, or it won't mean that you have to just give up and ignore yourself. Now, the last element that I want to talk about with this is the power of joy to bring healing to you. Now, what does joy have to do with your emotions? Does it mean that you have to act like you don't feel angry, act like you don't feel sad, you don't feel lonely, you don't feel scared? No, not at all. That is not what emotional maturity is, right? We've already established that. So this is not something that is fake, but it is something that you do have to practice. You have to teach yourself to get to the place of joy. And again, this is not denying your emotions, but it's recognizing your emotions, but also periodically making the choice to look for the good that is within your life. Looking at sunsets, looking at sunrises, looking at the flowers, looking at your husband and what is good in him, where today he may feel like he is your enemy and that he doesn't care, but on other days you know that he does care, you know that he does love you. And so you want to be able to put the relationship at a higher value than what your emotions and what your response pattern is telling you about him in the moment. So you would have to practice that, seeing joy and feeling joy within yourself by looking at the good that is within him, the good things that he does, the good things that he has said to you in the past, where he has been present for you, where he has helped you, whereas your emotions are trying to tell you, he is never there for me. But that's not true. And so you have to be able to reach for those things and to grab hold of them. Now, what can help with this also is having experiences with people, if we're using an example of your husband again, have experiences with him where you are experiencing joy together, and really take that in and create that stronger bond between the two of you. Look into his eyes and talk about what it is that you really appreciated about the day that you've spent together, the fun that you had, and how you really enjoyed him being there with you. And see that reflected back in his eyes, because what that does is that creates changes within you. It changes the emotional part of your brain so that you feel more secure within the relationship. And then when emotional upsets come about, you can reach back to those moments of joy, to those moments of bondedness with him, to know that he is there for you and that this is just a momentary upset that you are having right now. That if you can, understand and bring your emotions, the intensity down to that level of tolerance, then you're going to be able to work with him to get this misunderstanding clarified, or to get him to a place where he can see and understand and express care about how you are feeling hurt or fearful in the relationship. Another area that when your emotions feel out of control, or when you feel like you're not emotionally mature, and where this affects you is in your relationship with God. Now you may feel like, oh yeah, I believe in God, I love God, yet you've probably noticed that you have trouble really connecting with him. This is not surprising, since, what we've already explored here is how you did not have that really strong bond, those strong bonds of connection in your childhood. So you're going to have difficulty having it now with people, and you're going to have difficulty especially with God. And you can't look into the face of God and see his eyes and see, oh, he's smiling at me. But he is smiling at you. He does have affectionate love for you, and he is here for you. So one of the ways that you can build that within yourself, that connection with God, is to look at him as he is manifest in the world around you. And that can be in people, but it also, a good way to do it is with nature. For instance, you can go out and gaze upon a sunset and view that sunset as the face of God smiling at you, and express your thankfulness to Him about the gifts that He has given you. So you're going to be, this is for you, remember. It's not just, you're praising God, but this is healing that's occurring within you. So meditate for a few minutes on what you are grateful for, the gifts that He has given you. So you're training yourself to notice gifts, right? To notice the good things that are around you, but then also spend a few minutes meditating on how God has been present in your life when you most needed Him. And so this is going a little bit deeper, isn't it? And again, that's creating that secure bond, that attachment with God, your Father, and how He has been there for you. And then lastly, really focus on that sunset as being the face of God and Him smiling at you, and feel that, even in your own face, kind of being expressed back to Him. And also focus on your body, of where you feel that within your body, His face smiling upon you, and especially as you're reflecting on these gifts that He has given you in your life, when He has been with you, notice what it does within your body. Because what this is doing is, it is actually changing those developed response patterns that I talked about earlier. These are neural networks that begin up in the emotional part of your brain and go down into your body. So when you can, you're having this emotional experience with God, this deep connection with Him, noticing in your body is a great way to bring that healing deeper within you, that actually is going to change these neural networks within you. So that then in the future, when you are upset, then you will be much more adept, much more able to grab a hold of the good in the relationship, and to hold on the security of your relationship, instead of totally believing what your emotions are telling you, that you no longer have a relationship, that this person doesn't care about you, and that they're not safe. Or by dealing with your emotions, by believing that no one is going to care for you, or that something is wrong with you, and so you push those emotions down, in which, as I talked about before, neither one of those places is emotional maturity. Okay, let me know your thoughts on this. I know some of this probably felt rather abstract, and it's something that I go into more in some of my other videos. So I would encourage you to watch some more of those, because you need to be able to understand it clearly. And this is why I have an entire program on it. But in practice, it's actually very simple. And it requires you doing this on a regular basis. And as you do this on a regular basis, then those deep changes are going to occur within you, so that when these emotional triggers come, then you can deal with your emotions and be able to get your emotional needs met. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I do have a free resource for you, and this is it's a resource to help you with your self-image and to become more aware of your response patterns. It's also going to use scripture to help you to internalize those feelings, that connection with God, and all of this will work together to help change those response patterns. So I hope that you will take advantage of that, and let me know what you thought of this and if you have any questions, okay? Have a great day. Bye now.